for joining us here on Good Day Northern Michigan. Veteran journalist John Counts takes readers to a world that he knows very well from his years as a crime reporter in Northern Michigan.
Built around a fictional Great Lakes coastal county, John joins us now to discuss Bexar County, Michigan stories. John, thanks for stopping in and giving us some time.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Let's start with kind of your background and your ties to Northern Michigan as a reporter here in the past.
Sure. Well, I grew up, coming to Northern Michigan like a lot of downstate kids, did a lot of trout fishing in the area and hunting and stuff like that. And when I became a journalist, it took me to the town of Manistee, not too far from here, where I was the police and court reporter for 3 or 4 so years. And then I moved down to the Ann Arbor area where I was a police and court crime reporter there for 10 odd years. And I'm currently the editor of the statewide investigative team for MLive.
Wow.
Excellent.
That's incredible.
Okay,
Okay, so I have to know, what is it about the crime and investigation that you love the most or makes you passionate? What got you into it?
I think I've always been attracted to intriguing stories, and I think crime stories show a certain side of humanity that other beats don't show you, right?
Yeah.
So you get kind of the best and the worst of humanity, I think, right?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've kind of taken those experiences and imbued the stories, the fictional stories in Bexar County, with some of that intrigue. I hope that was the aim.
Well, tell us where the idea came from and what really the concept of the book is.
Sure. So I started the book when I was working in Manistee, 10 odd years ago. And, I just kind of was combing through the police reports, as I'm sure you do here as a news organization, and you see certain things. And, I'd grown up, but I always wanted to be a fiction writer, so I started to kind of, fictionalize some of the things that I saw through the police reports. And it's, it's not all grim and crime. It's also, I think through the crime and the big events, there is, hope and compassion and empathy for these people. I love all of these people in this book. Some of them are kind of screwballs or kind of, criminals. But, I think that's where, we find our empathy for other people.
So when you sit down to write a book like this, where do you start? Because I'm sure your mind is just circling with all these ideas and just so much going on. Where do you begin? Yeah, so
this is a collection of short stories, so they all came at different times over a very long time frame. It's not like news where you're sitting in the back of the courthouse writing up the story as it's happening. You have time to reflect on it, and this is what those stories mean. You try to give them meaning, right? But they came slowly over a period of many years. And, now that they've been collected, it's taken a very long time. But yeah, you start with the idea, usually like an image or a small event, an incident that happens, and then you start to build it out with your imagination.
So you collected these stories knowing that you were going to put them into a book, or was it more of a hobby at the time?
That was the hope.
Okay.
That's always the hope, and the place really bound all of these stories together. Bexar County is a fictional county. I've always imagined it kind of sandwiched in between Benzie County and Manistee County, just to the west of us here.
Sounds logical.
It's yep. So. That's what bound all of these stories together, and the place kind of created the types of characters that live there.
The back cover refers to them as colorful, darkly comic stories.
Yes.
And you don't have to give it away or give away all the details, obviously, but throw a couple of the main characters at us, or some of the catchier things that we might find entertaining.
Sure. So the opening story starts off with a character named Big Frank. And Big Frank breaks out of a rehab facility so he can go break into vacation houses and steal everybody's booze.
Oh, there
so
you go.
there's Big Frank, and he's kind of trying to outrun some grief and that kind of stuff. And then there's a story about an old woman who collects animal skulls in the woods to build a skull house out of them.
Oh, all right.
Very much like the Bottle House, which it was partially inspired by.
Okay.
And another story is about a local politician who has to go to a nudist colony on the shores of Lake Michigan and save her mother, who has gone there.
Oh.
Love
That's
it.
Yes.
an interesting take for sure. You have a little bit of everything.
Does anybody ever
in
ask
this
you,
book.
like, where does your brain go to come up with some of these ideas?
Yes.
Yes,
And I'm not
okay.
sure. I don't know.
I love it though.
I'm just out there in the world soaking it all in, and this is what comes out.
Yes.
That's
That's
awesome.
that's really funny. This was your first book, is that right?
Correct.
All right. So what was the process like from 10 years ago saying, I want to put some stories together, to finding
Sure.
a publisher, and then having this kind of show up on your doorstep and seeing it in print for the
it's-
first time?
It's amazing. It's also a long and agonizing process. Writing is hard. Writing. I aim for literary fiction, and I think that process is difficult artistically. So that's hard. But then getting published is difficult as well. But I found a great publisher in Northwestern University Press, which does work about Midwest themes, Midwest fictions, and they've been very supportive. And just to get that book on your doorstep and hold it in your hands, I can tell you is an amazing experience. I've wanted to be a writer since I was like 14 or 15, and I've waited a long time for this, and it's just truly amazing that it's all happening like this now.
So you have the first book done. Will there be a second book? What do you think? Not to put the pressure on you.
I've got a
Let him
draft.
enjoy the first minute.
I know.
I'm trying to enjoy this now, but I am working on a draft of a novel that takes place behind the scenes at a newspaper in
Okay.
kind of a bigger Midwestern town, more downstate. So
That's awesome.
I think the newspaper industry, I kind of grew up in it. My dad was a journalist too. He worked for the Bay City Times, so I grew up around the romance and beauty of the newspaper and the prints rumbling in the basements at 3 o'clock to put out the next day's paper. And it's just, gone through such a drastic change over the past 20 years, and I've kind of lived through that. And I think it's important that the public see reporters and journalists as heroes again, as opposed to something
The bad
different.
guys.
The
I
bad
love
guys,
it.
exactly.
I
So
love
that's
it.
kind of the aim of the next book, hopefully.
Good. Well, be sure to let us know
Yes.
when that one's ready, and we'll bring you back.
Awesome, thanks.
Love that idea as a
Yep.
good concept.